Dave, I want to talk about majors. Okay, you got a top 10 in every major. You know, U.S. Open, Masters. I want you to kind of bring us inside the ropes a little bit because those kind of have a different energy about them themselves. You know, what's it like caddying, you know, in a major championship, getting a top 10, no mind you? Could you share, you know, just some of the cool shots you've seen or just some of the, you know, interesting, you know, kind of like wow moments, you know, for you?
Well, I think I can, and I think maybe the most interesting story was the U.S. Open at Shinnecock that Ray Floyd won. I think that was '88, and I was working for Chip Beck. He was playing really, really well, and I don't know what place we were in going into the last round, but we were playing with Seve Ballesteros, and so that draws quite a crowd in and of itself. But then on the backside, Chip just started lighting it up, and Seve started fading. And you know, you can hear difficult stories about Seve, you know, doing a variety of things. He was very, very competitive in the Ryder Cups and that sort of thing. You know, maybe not crossing a line, but getting close to line, so to speak. Well, I mean, I still get you know, hair stands on the back of my neck when I think about Seve, because I want to say it was right around the 14th or 15th hole that Seve went over to Chip, and he was basically out of the tournament in terms of winning the tournament, and which was all that he was concerned about. And you know, Chip made a number of birdies, and then the 17th green to the 18th tee is like a 150-yard walk through like a hayfield, and it's just, you know, the caddies and the players and the score. And Chip was, I mean, Seve was like literally in Chip's ear, and he was saying, you know, you can do it. You need one more, you can do it. And he told him that like 10 times, you can do it, you know. And on the last hole, Chip hit a driver and a 4-iron in there, like, wow, I want to say 4 feet. And that putt was for a 29 on the backside at a U.S. Open on Sunday. And, you know, he didn't make the putt. We ended up finishing second. But those were exciting times. And when I said that at that point in time that these events were not bigger than Chip, he could handle them, that's what I meant. And so for me, my experience of it was, you know, you're just making decisions out there and everything else just kind of fades away. But that memory of the generosity of Seve Ballesteros at that time was unforgettable.
Gotcha.
Memories. This with Seve to the players that are now, like, you've just seen so much come and go. I mean, Seve's not even with us anymore. I never got to see Seve play. I mean, just some old video. Yeah. But you get to see so much. It's just, there's just so much there. I love that. I mean, I want to hear some more about that, actually.
Dave, you kind of talked about, you know, kind of Chip playing better and Seve playing bad. Do you notice like energy exchanges out there between players and how they play, where maybe one player starts playing good, the other one kind of comes up, or maybe, you know, one player starts playing bad and the other one kind of takes advantage of that and starts pulling away?
Well, I feel like, and I can't quote the study, but I think there are studies to show that, you know, like when, you know, one or two players are playing well, it seems to lift the whole group. And the contrary is also true. And so I've seen that, I've participated in that, and I'm actually hoping that the competitors in our group are playing well, because there's a certain energy that, and if you can kind of get in their draft, you know, that it can be helpful to you. But I've also seen in very, you know, competitive situations, very competitive players with a chance to win on the backside on Sunday. You can see gamesmanship if you know what to look for. And you know, the skillful person who maybe is amenable to doing those sort of things, if they're skillful, it's like gamesmanship, where you're like, did he just do what I thought he did, and was he trying to interrupt my flow, or, you know, with maybe a sound here or some shadows here, or
change
speeding up, stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, I can validate that point real quick. I have seen that.
Yeah.
And in my 10 years up there,
yeah,
I saw so much energy exchange. If the group was playing, a couple guys aren't playing well in the group, the whole group just kind of turns off.
That's right.
Nobody can get anything going.
Yeah.
Everyone's living on putts.
Yeah.
No one can get anything going. And then you're in a group where everyone's just kind of, things are going for them. They're going their way. They're all pouring it in. You're just like, really? Those guys really need that. They need to feed. They're such competitive creatures. You know, such competitive athletes.
Yeah.
You know, and it's almost like a practice round if everybody's not trying. So the fact that your playing partner is beating you, or you're making those birdies, that steps it up for these guys.
That's
I
right.
think, and I've seen Phil do this. Phil kind of did to get the juices flowing.
Right.
Hey guys, let's play for $20 or something. You always got some kind of little bet going on within the guys, even for practice rounds, just to kind of get that anticipation up. I think that's really good because it keeps you really engaged.
Right.
Well, I feel like it's your environment that you're in. If you're with those two players, they're part of your environment, and their good play rubs off on you. I've always heard, you're gonna act like the 5 people around you. So you have to be very careful who your friends are. And who you're playing with, who you're practicing with at your club. That's why Arizona's so cool, because when you come here to Legacy or Raven or Western Skies, you're around good players, good juniors, and they're working hard. And that kind of helps keep you accountable and keeps you working your ass off too when you know that the guy you're playing with on Gateway Tour is there at 8 in the morning every day.
Yeah.
So it's your environment. And that's why if I was a player, I would want someone like Dave on my bag. All years of experience. And he's competitive. He's saying, Gabe, hey, let's go. You're starting slow. We're here to win. This is the PGA Tour. We're not here to make cuts. Hunter, you got the game. I know you got the game. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And he can draw off past experiences with other players. Because for someone like Dave, he's seen the progress of the evolution of a player, kind of, getting out there and then, getting his experience and slowly progressing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure now he can even speed that up for players even more because, he's seen the progress.
Well, that can't happen overnight. You just can't get 25 years of experience overnight. Your buddy goes, hey, you can do this. He puts that paycheck. Dave says, hey, you can do this. And he looks me in the eye. I believe that. That's a validation. And it's a confidence level that he's instilling in me. And we're talking about confidence and how important a caddy can instill confidence in the player if he has the experience to back it up.
It validates. If I'm your caddy and I'm like, yeah, you can probably do it. I think you could. How many years have I caddied on tour? How many rounds have I caddied in major championships and Ryder Cups? Dave says it. I'm like, oh shit, really? Man, maybe I can. Dave, you told me you can't lie. You do things you can justify. So I said, all right.
Yeah, the only reason you're gonna step up there and say, hey, you can do it is you want that paycheck. I want to talk a little bit about that. Do you think some of these guys, they play for the money now? They play for the trophies? And that's the big thing. Do guys play for the money? They play for the trophies? Or do they play for the love of the game? Have we seen that fall off? Is that something you saw when you came on the tour? Guys loving the game, legitimately loving it and playing it because they loved it? Or are there guys still out there like that? Or are they just kind of playing because, it's a job now. And they can have Lamborghinis and a comfortable life, making $1 million, barely keeping their car.
Yeah, I do think that there's a tendency, or it's possible that players can reach a certain comfort level and the financial resource is not a problem anymore and that kind of thing. But it occurs to me, 20 years ago, we were having the same discussion, because when I started, there weren't 125 cards out there. There was top 60.
Wow.
And then the rest we were called the rabbits, and you would have Monday qualifying for every tournament, and there would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 35 spots. And so, I think Sam Snead labeled those are the rabbits, so to speak. And then all of a sudden, corporate money came in, and the GGO, the Greater Greensboro Open, became the Kmart Greater Greensboro Open. I think that was, or the Nissan LA Open. And all of a sudden, the money goes, way up, and there were comments about, players are going to be complacent, and the drive to get better is not going to be there. And so I think there's some truth to that, but I think the players like, Jordan Spieth, or it looks like Jason Day, or these other guys, young people coming up, have a drive to win.
To win.
Yeah, to excel. And I've always hoped that my player would have a drive to excel. And if that money became, cumbersome is not the right word, but I would want them to maximize that and then use it to help somebody else, maybe to be a motivational tool. And a lot of players out here do have charities they support, and I think that's kind of a big deal.
I talked to you about that money for a second. You're talking about purses that are $6 million now, 1.1, 1.2 to the winner. When you first came on tour in the 80s, early 80s, where did we see the purses at? What were they at? What was the prize here?
I think I want to say in 1982 caddy for Danny Edwards, and I think he won the Greater Greensboro Open, and I think the purse was 250. Oh no, I think he won 52,000. 52
Okay.
for first place.
It's like a
But I want to say,
50.
I'm thinking now, I was thinking about that 250, because back then, I believe it was 81, my friend Mike Hicks, who was Payne Stewart's caddy for the longest time, and I was working for Edwards back then. We drove from Boston to Amarillo, Texas for the last big money event of the year, and it was 350,000.
purse or to the winner?
The purse.
Mm.
Drove from,
Has the percentages changed? Because every percentage is a little bit different for a caddy, and they kind of talk about that with their contract. Was it 10% back there? I mean, we talk about that now. That's kind of a standard. We're gonna say it's standard. 10% to the winner for a caddy. Nowadays, you're making $120,000 as a caddy for 4 days. Essentially of work. It's a lot of money. What did you make back then, percentage
that
wise?
was 10%.
Still
yeah.
10%. That never deviated, huh?
No, but sometimes, I've worked for players that give you a bonus at the end of the year as well, based on performance, and I always like that.
Yeah, that seems fair. I think that's an individual contract
Right.
worked out, and I want to touch upon that a little bit.
You want to participate though, I mean, because
Yeah.
it's hard getting wins out here, and you say it's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but it's hard to bring that home.
Yeah, it's not that 10%. It's happening every week.
Right.
That's your Stephen Williams in
Right.
2000.
Yeah.
Dave, can you share a little bit about the relationship between a player and caddy? One of the things that I kind of learned was I initially thought, a player and a caddy would be like best of friends. That's not what I thought just instinctually. I'm like, oh, these guys are playing every round together, they're practice rounds together, traveling week in, week out. I thought they'd be like a brother. Like they live with you, they go to movies with you, they go out to dinner with you. Like they'd just be a best friend. Maybe because the small tournaments that I've played in and have had caddies, or tournaments that I've caddied for, we're friends. We're best of friends. We do hang out all the time. We do go to movies. So can you share, for the majority, what the relationship is like between a player and caddy on the PGA Tour?
Well, I mean, when you're starting out, you're trying to establish a professional relationship, and you're trying to establish the fact that you can be helpful on the golf course and help them grow as a player. And certainly, over time, you develop friendships, and I think that's important as well. Because like you say, you're spending so much time with your player, and I can be with my player from in the past like 3 weeks to 6 weeks in a row. That's a lot of days, and so it can be more than like a marriage almost. And so there has to be a certain respect between the individuals. And I've always appreciated working for players who respected me and my time, because you're putting so many hours in. And certainly, you want to go the extra mile for your player, but you would like your player to go the extra mile for you. So there is stress out there, and but if you have open communication, that's key. And if you have a relationship, that you can gel. I've worked for players where it didn't work out, and there's some like little snippy kind of things said to a caddy, and sometimes the caddy kind of bites back, and I've experienced that some. But best of friends, I don't know about best of friends, but you certainly
Hours
should
are we
be.
talking here? Because I do know for a fact that people don't realize this is a sports arena. It's not 5 days a week. It's not like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. If you're closing up shop on Friday, that's not a good thing. You're missing cuts. So you want to make the weekend. So you're basically saying, I hope I work 7 days this week.
Exactly.
That would be a good thing.
That's
That's
right.
a lot of days. How many hours each day are you putting in as a caddy?
I haven't thought about that much, but the thing of it is I like caddying, I like my job, and I like kind of breaking down courses and seeing, you can never have enough numbers. In other words, as much as we see on TV how these players are striping it, they can hit a lot of loose shots, and when, somebody who's hitting the ball 310 yards hits a loose shot, it can go, sideways, and so the hours that you put in, It's never. I mean, to be honest with you, when I'm on the road, a lot of times I'm more. If there's an energy that I don't like, it's like loneliness. So I would rather be out working, and then you know me, or we've done some stuff in the evenings, or go to a facility and maybe go to a place and swim a few laps or do some yoga. Or stuff
Well, I mean,
like
the fitness has stepped up for caddies too. We talked a little bit about that with players and how
Right.
they've had to come up. I mean, these players are healthier, they're stronger, they're walking faster, and you got to keep up,
Yeah,
right? You actually have to be ahead of them.
ideally,
Ideally, you've got
you want
to
to be
get ahead
ahead. Yeah,
and get the number.
that's
So
right.
they can, you can get the number so they can come up to the bag and everything's ready to go. Which ideally means that you have to be a little bit more in shape
That's
sometimes
right.
to your players. So when the players are stepping it up, these caddies have to step it up too.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point that a lot of people could pick up on. Is Fish asked him, how many hours are you working a day? And Dave's response was, I don't know. So it sounds like Dave, he enjoys the process. He's not counting hours. If you're counting time at your work, it means you don't like it. When I'm hanging out with my girlfriend, I got an hour and a half I can leave. I'm dreading it. I'm counting TikTok. When am I gonna get the hell out of here? I feel like a jail. Crazy bad.
Oh my god.
Did you say that?
Yeah, she's all I got.
Yeah, well,
You should hear her talk to you.
she might not be around much longer.
She doesn't watch the podcast, the old ball and chain.
I love that.
But that's not talking about. That's here nor there.
Yeah.
But
We'll
no,
edit that.
for real though, that shows this guy. He just likes the work. He likes getting yardages and mapping out the courses and course management. If the pin's here, where are we? If the pin's here, where are we? If my player says this, what do I do? If my player, and for Dave, I've talked to him just this last week. He's very aware of how his player's feeling and how his player's playing. And that's key, and just like David, just like Fish and I, we like to stay stimulated. We gotta stay engaged. We need something to do, or else, it gets monotonous. And you can't stay out there no way he could have stayed out there for 25 years if he was, dreading it, if he was counting, I can't wait for Sunday to be over and be back home. You can't do that.
But it's also challenging trying to learn how to connect with your player, even though you think you know them and you think that you know their game and that sort of thing. But you can get in these situations where, it's, I guess I describe it as like thin air up there, where players are maybe, I guess, you're trying not to use the word choking and stuff like that, but you're just trying to treat things in a normal way. And the stuff that I used and learned how, the language that connected with Chip Beck, I probably should have known better, but it didn't connect with Aaron Oberholzer. And but you're grateful for a player to tell you, no, don't say that to me.
Yeah, actually caddied a couple of times, and I was working for a particular player in Charlotte. And after the round, he says, "Hey, that was a great job. You did a great job. You're just a little too positive. You might want to work on that." And I thought to myself, I've never heard of that. But at the time, I was working with Chris Stroud, and he's one of the most positive people you can be around.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy's mental attitude is top notch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I actually venture to say he's one of the top mentally strong
Oh.
golfers on the PGA Tour. In my
Didn't know
personal
that.
opinion, very strong-minded, and just constantly had this positive attitude with everything he did. He never wavered,
Mhm.
even in very stressful situations.
Mhm.
Never wavered, and I was very impressed with that.
That's impressive.
But here I have using the same verbiage with another player, and that's what I'm used to, and he's telling me, don't do that.
You're not working with golf shots. You're working with a person.
Exactly.
With different upbringings from a different country or different state.
That's right.
And each person's uniquely different.
Yeah.
So I feel like communication, like Dave said, is huge. I had a player do that with me. He said, "Gabe, I really like how you caddy compared to my old one. My old one, I hit a bad shot. He'd be like, we'll get it back." He's like, "God, I hated that." That never even crossed my mind to say. But the thing is, if the player doesn't communicate that with the caddy, he's never gonna know.
Yeah.
So
And we're talking about golfers as, I'm not going to say, I mean, it's a strong word to say the majority. I don't know if the preponderance of golfers are actually introverts, but a lot of them are very intrinsic, just athletes. So it's really hard to know what someone's thinking, and you're guessing a lot. So it's very hard to you can try to sit down with your player afterwards, say, "Hey, let's talk about what went on out there." And a lot of times they don't want to. It's kind of like, "Hey, you know what? Read my mind.
Right.
in my mind,
Right.
because that I'm not going to communicate. And extroverts can have a little bit, sometimes easier time communicating their thoughts because they wear it on the sleeve. So sometimes it's actually easier to work for a player that wears his emotions on the sleeve, because then you know where you stand with him. You work for a guy who's pretty quiet, he's not saying much to you, you're kind of like, oh, I don't know what's going on, seems like a real nice guy. And you don't know what's going on inside his head, so it's kind of nicer sometimes to actually work for a guy and know your position and know where you stand.
Right, and a player that I've worked for recently shared with me, said, I hate being comforted on the golf course. And I was thinking, wow, that's really good information to know, you know? Because, you know, I've cussed players out, and I've, like I said, I've tried to hold their hand walking to the next tee and rub their back kind of thing, because you try to do what you think's going to work, you know? You just don't know, but you got to, you know, take it upon yourself to try.
That's one of the things a player might have to learn for himself is what does he need to get the most out of the game. I'm sure a lot of players don't know. You know, I think we heard some comments, Jordan Spieth, and Jordan Spieth was like telling his caddy, like, hey, you grabbed me by the throat, and you tell me never to do that again, you know, like kick my ass a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, but and I think that's
You knew it. You knew what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of players, they don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of just looking for that magical,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where's the guy who's going to do everything right? And I think you kind of take that approach with relationships too. You know? You don't know what you want in a relationship. You're just kind of like, oh, she's pretty.
Do you think, Dave, players know why they're good? You know, does a player know, like, I need this, I need that, and I do this, and I get these rules? Like, do you think some players know why they're good at golf? Do you know if some players know why they're not good? Or I'm trying to get at that, like, does that help or not help a player if they know why they're good? You know, some of these players are like, I just hit the ball around. You know, I don't know if I need to be pushed or not pushed. I just swing. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, you know, like for instance, I would say Chip Beck was probably as hard a worker as there's ever been on the PGA Tour. You hear a lot about other players and that kind of thing, but I'm just saying, when I worked for Chip, you know, it was pretty amazing, and that was like fundamental to him, you know, like standing on solid ground, so to speak. But I think there are a number of players who don't seem to have the awareness of what's going on, you know, and where, you know, how things are breaking down, why they're breaking down, and it'd be nice to have people around him, I guess her on the ladies tour, to help them, you know, kind of unpack what's going on, so to speak. Because you know, I know I've worked for some players, more than one player, who you feel like their history maybe wasn't what it might have been, and maybe their energy to get to a golf course and stay on a golf course from dawn till dusk was because of maybe some difficulties in the neighborhood or families or school or stuff like that. And so I don't know if that relates to what you're saying, but I mean, we're all human beings, and sometimes, you know, I do things and I'm like, why did I do that? Why do I keep doing that? Stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you gotta imagine, here's a player who's been pretty, probably socially inept a little bit, you know, maybe that's maybe a little strong, harsh, and socially inept, but this kid spent the majority of the time on a golf course for, you know, his upbringing. He's missed out on a lot of things in childhood, you know. And he comes up and he has to learn how to now communicate with a guy who has never been there, ever.
That's right.
I mean, he's played golf and has loved the solitude of the game his entire life.
Right.
And he's actually excelled at a high level.
Right.
And the PGA Tour, or any kind of entity that actually operates as a professional golf tour, basically is saying, oh, now you need someone by your side.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy concept. It's like out of the blue. It's like wait. I play golf because I actually like being alone. I play golf because I don't need anybody else. If I wanted that, I would play basketball. I'd play another sport, 2-man volleyball or something. I'm a golfer. I blame everything on myself. I'm used to that. You bring in this other entity, and this guy kind of has some control of what goes on. I mean, he plays a big part. And I'll tell you, when you say 6-iron, and that flies the green, and that was your call, oh boy, I knew it. I know I should have never listened to you. You know, they're like, oh, it's this new relationship. I mean, I worked for Overton when he first came out of college. He was this Walker Cup star, and I remember I was like, hey, you know, hit to the right of that tree. See that big tree? Just hit to the right of that. I mean, he hits this shot to the right, and it just slices OB, and I was like, ooh, that's not good. And he comes back to the bag, and he just was like, you never say right again. because the last word he heard was right, and he hit it right.
Mm-hmm.
So the next tee box, I'm thinking to myself, man, what am I saying? Well, like this tree in the distance, and he's thinking, yeah. I was like, just to the outside of the tree, and I'm signaling where I want him to go. I mean, you have to figure out that way to communicate. Jeff had never had a caddy in his entire life, and here's this stranger trying to actually be there and help him, and it's a very strange dichotomy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That brings up a good point, and that's like the whole idea of movement towards improvement is constantly progressing with the season or stage of your life that you're in. You know, when you go from college to professional golf to PGA Tour, there's always going to be constantly new challenges that come your way that you either need, that will either get you up to the next level, or you stay with where you're at. And I'm sure Dave's seen players who he's caddied for stay where they're at with their game, and I'm sure Dave's seen players constantly progress. So Dave, do you have any type of summing up? What do you think is a good trait for a player to have that you've seen has been able to constantly notch up, where some players just keep getting in their own way? Like you said, they keep getting in those patterns and they don't get out of them.
Well, again, that's like an individual thing, and I've worked for players that, frankly, I think they have a lot of fear and don't address that. I think there's things that every player has to overcome, and some are fundamental just swing issues, but the challenge of the competition, the challenge of being on a big stage, that kind of thing, coming up short and having to deal with that are issues that all the players, I think, have to go through. And some of them just maybe fake it better than others until they can establish themselves on solid ground, so to speak.
Yeah, does that start when you're a junior?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that's so important. You're not there yet. As
Right.
a caddy, you're not there. You're there as an adult. These patterns are already built. We talk about functional patterns in the golf swing, physical patterns that people have ingrained for decades. There's emotional patterns there too.
Right.
Emotional patterns, people, how they deal with a certain shot.
Right. Right.
Davis Love, right? His dad. We have to hear stories of his dad having him hit shots in the water, and then asking him, "Did that hurt you?" No, it didn't. Don't be afraid of that.
Right.
That's kind of courage. Oh, okay, that really helped. So for our juniors listening out there, it's important that they learn those patterns, not just physically for actually what positions they need to be in for the golf swing, but also emotional patterns and how important that is.
Right. And those patterns can, all patterns can become ingrained. And I was talking to a player early last year, I believe it was, on the West Coast, and who's had great success, and yet I was just out walking yardage, and struck up a conversation, and somehow got on the topic of, he was talking about joy and not enjoying what he's doing, and I felt like that was kind of self-revealing, although I didn't know him that well, and I was just asking him where he thought that came from, and I think that players, not just golf, but people, they experience things the way they experience them, and it's interesting that if somebody experiences, trying to aspire to win a golf tournament like it's climbing Mount Everest, then that's what's going to present itself to them. And I'd like to think that, the experiences and the feelings that we have and these emotional patterns are changeable, but it takes application, and it certainly takes awareness. And if a player, is really struggling to win, and then all of a sudden they maybe experience themselves, like angry or something like that, and then they win along with that, then all of a sudden they've kind of established that pattern, and so the next time they're going to, be that way, if that makes any sense, it's going to be, they're going to continue that, emotional pattern, and so they might be successful and yet not enjoy it as much as you would think that they probably should.
Well, it's a subjective game, like you said, we all experience things differently.
Right.
And your perception is your reality.
Right.
What story are you telling yourself out there?
Right. And a lot of times, players, at least I've had players, that win, and when they win, they don't get what they thought was going to come with that. with that win, the freedom or something like that, or the reward, or maybe, a family member's acceptance or stuff like that. I mean, I've seen that, and that can really throw a person.
Well, as a culture, we always idolize the number one. Whether it's the music video awards or the NBA championship or winning a PGA tournament, we've been kind of conditioned as a society to want to win. That's the whole
Right.
purpose, to
Right.
get number one. And here you are competing with other artists or golfers, and yet the only person you should be competing with is yourself and getting better in that journey. So when you win, and as Fish has taught me, you win Sunday, you get the trophy. Guess what? Next week, you're already forgotten about. And yet here you are thinking that was the whole goal. Now, 2 days later, no one cares, and now it's on to the next tournament. They got a new winner, and you're like, what about me, guys? I mean, I won. You don't remember my win, It's gone that quick.
Right.
So I think you have to be very much into the journey part of the game, enjoying the process, and
Exactly. Yeah.
just like in the game of golf. David, can we talk a little bit, about juniors,
Mhm.
middle school, high school, college players who want to get on tour? What type of advice would you give them, coming up, practicing, playing? What do you think they need to do from an early age to give themselves a chance to let's say not even get on the PGA Tour, but to be the best players they can be?
Well, I mean, the first thing I think is, the enjoyment of the game itself, and playing for the enjoyment of the game itself. And along with that, you have to have really solid fundamentals. So, you can repeat what you're trying to do under pressure. And I think like if you make one like an inside move that's not the most efficient way, then you've got to counterbalance that to get the club head the way you need it, on the face of the ball, on the face of the club head to get it to go where you want. So if you can minimize the the flying elbows or the moving body, and I'm not a swing technician, but I do know what good fundamentals look like, and so you need proper instruction, and then passion for the game, that kind of thing, because there aren't really any secrets except hard work, and play as much as you can, really.
Yeah, you're making a good point. And I know I've dealt with this. You're a young kid. You don't really know much about the golf thing. You're just trying to make it work.
Right.
And you're just really working hard. And unfortunately, working hard to ingrain a bad pattern.
Right.
So my brother played when he was younger. I didn't play when I was younger. And he got some really good advice. He had some good instruction. And that's still with him today. He literally can pick up a golf club, never plays. He can pick up a golf club and he can stay with me.
Right.
A guy who plays a lot more than he does because his patterns and his fundamentals were so solid as a junior.
Right. Right.
Would you say, Dave, in your experience from the players you've seen get to the tour and perform well, that they would need a lot of pieces in place in order to get them there? They need a lot of things from an early age to go their way, to maybe be in a club that has a good facility where they can play and practice. Maybe they get a good coach, or maybe they don't get a coach that doesn't mess them up. They kind of need a lot of things to go in their way to make it to being one of the best athletes in the world. And as Fish says, some of that stuff's out of our control from sometimes. And that's why I think I've tried to promote your personal journey. You can't really. I don't like to compare myself to an achievement like being on the PGA Tour. But if I can constantly, assess myself and constantly get a little bit better, that's all I can do. I can only focus on, my practicing and my emotions and thoughts. I can't focus on this kid who's had a better swing than me and started playing golf at 5 and I started playing golf at 15. So I think it needs to be a personal journey, as you alluded to. It's always specific to the person, and their strengths and weaknesses and what they need.
Right. And then maybe you can be creative and figure out a way to get on, exchange. I mean, like in Hilton Head, I cleaned the range down there for free in exchange for free golf, stuff like that. Try to be creative and maybe find a mentor, somebody who's maybe farther down the line than you, because I think that there's plenty of people that would want to help. Somebody who's sincerely passionate and willing to do extra things to try to participate in a full way.
I constantly look at my life as daily challenges,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we're making this podcast, and that's why you're here, so you can share your experience to help other people all across the world. But I really do believe that, like, in your life, when a problem occurs, you know, you don't have the money to play, you don't have the money to practice, you don't have the money for a coach. It's literally an opportunity for you to either be creative enough, think enough to rise above it, or you let that become a barrier and a wall. You know, I don't got the money of a country club kid. I could never make it. That's a victim mentality, you know? And it's true that you won't have some resources and opportunities other people have, but that also wasn't their choice to, you know, be born and grow up in that family. But with everything, there's pros and cons. Sometimes you see these country club kids fed the golden spoon. You know, if they play a bad round of golf, they get to, you know, go eat lunch in the clubhouse, put on their father's, you know, number, and they don't have to work and grind. They don't got that dirt hustle I see from, you know, Jorge that came from Argentina, you know, growing up on the 9-hole municipal course. So that's one of the biggest things, especially for me, because I was one of those kids. I worked at the country club, and I was like, I'd carry up those country club kids' clubs, like, you know, if I had a place to play and practice, you know?
Yeah.
But that's a victim mentality, and if you're creative enough, that's what I did. I was testing clubs for TaylorMade, and I'd go to the guy in the pro shop like, hey, you know, I could get you some clubs or some shoes, you know? You think you sneak me out here in the afternoon? And he did. You know, so you can always be creative. You can always ask a coach, which I've done. You know, if you show people you're hungry and you're motivated and you're open-minded, that's what they love,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think for the listeners, do what Dave says, be creative.
Right.
You know, challenges, whether it's for caddying, whether it's for playing, whether it's for business, it's all how you respond to it.
That's right. That's right.
So I mean, let's wrap this up. Let's bring it like kind of full circle to a topic that's kind of a little controversial, and it's very new in the PGA Tour world. I have caddied. I have been out there. I've experienced that, and that's it's hard. It is extremely hard. You don't have much time to yourself. We talk about movement towards improvement, constantly getting improvement. You're literally selflessly giving so much time to somebody else. So here we are. We're talking about, you know, the tour in the early '80s all the way till now, and we watched just how much money has come into play. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, you know, you're going from making $30 a day to, you know, sometimes $2,000-$3,000 a day, depending on how your player plays. So it's constant change. So I'm watching it with this new improvements. Money brings a lot of things, and maybe not necessarily always improvements. But right now there's a controversial discussion about how caddies feel as if they are walking billboards. And they're fine with that, but they don't feel that they're being reimbursed for that.
Right.
So now money's coming into the picture, and I don't know if you guys are going to become unionized. It'll be interesting to see if that happens. But, you know, now caddies have maybe a voice.
Right.
Things like podcasts now and things like vlogs and whatnot. They give you guys an opportunity
Right.
to have a voice, whereas
Right.
caddies have never been able to be heard before.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of want just ask you a little bit of your thoughts on what's going on with the PGA Tour, what's going on with the bibs. Maybe kind of let the listeners kind of know what's going on.
Right.
An opportunity kind of to tell everybody what's currently happening, because a lot of viewers they really don't know much about caddies. They're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I don't even know how a caddy gets hired."
Right.
So it's a fascinating kind of concept. I'd love people to kind of make their own opinions of what's going on. So I just wonder if you could tell a little bit about the story about what's going on right now with reimbursement for the caddies having
Right.
the bibs on, whether or not they get
Well, you know,
compensated for that.
I mean, the only thing that I know up to this point is that there's, you know, a legal challenge, and I'm not sure that the process is underway, but, you know, having caddied out here since the early 80s, and you're wearing the bibs with the signage, and, you know, I wish we did know the inside story as to how much that, you know, for instance, Honda or Toyota or whoever
Right,
is the
sponsor,
sponsors are paying for that signage, you know, because there's a value there, and I think it's a lot of money, and I think there's experts that break that down, and to not be able to participate in that is frustrating for me, and it's part of just being handled, I think, in a professional way, and so I'm a party to what's going on, but I don't have any inside information except to say that, you know, the signage that that I wear that I don't have a choice over, I certainly feel like that the players that I work for, if it's, a Nike guy, like I worked for Kyle Stanley recently, or Hunter's a Nike person, or Aaron Oberholzer's Titleist, that kind of thing, and they might have NetJets or some other corporate sponsor that pays them to wear those things, I don't know what they would say. I mean, if I were to suggest that, well, you're not going to get paid for that, you can donate that to the PGA Tour or whoever, just because you're out here and you're...
Well, I mean, PGA Tour players are independent contractors. Right?
So am I.
And so are you. And the PGA Tour, not necessarily putting a billboard on you, but it's not a matter what they're putting on, it's what they're taking away. There's
Right.
an opportunity for you to have your own brands scattered across.
Right.
You're seen on TV, you're vocal, you're not vocal, but you're visible. That should be warranted as value. And for me, what I think and how I feel about that is what's being taken away. They're not giving you an opportunity to show your sponsor.
Right.
Gabe and I, we have MTI, we have our Fish Fit, we have our logos on top of us. We make sure that that's seen. That's something we're passionate about, something we care about. If we had to wear a bib or we were told to actually tape that up, I think that we would definitely take a stand against that. I mean,
Right.
I don't think that's
Right.
fair at all. So, I mean, obviously we have that's definitely an issue. But now what's interesting is now that money's involved, now that money's coming into the picture, you guys have a voice. You have someone kind of fighting for you. You guys have got people representing you, which I don't think would have ever happened in the 80s.
Right.
I don't think people would have stood up for you guys and said, hey, you guys aren't making enough.
Right.
That's the kind of thing is you guys aren't making enough for us to make a stink over it. But now you guys are making pretty good money? Okay, now we're there by your side. And that's a good thing.
Right. Right.
How are you? I mean, you're providing a service. You're doing something for a company.
Sure.
I don't really know off the top of my head how you could justify not getting paid providing a service for a company, marketing a company.
Right. And so, like, with that in mind, I explored this, many years ago about, I was working for a top 10 player, and I felt like that I was, the visor or whatever I was wearing was undervalued, and so I sent out, I watched TV and saw who was advertising on the PGA Tour tournaments on a regular basis. I put together a proposal, and I spoke to, like, I want to say maybe 10 players and their caddies. So, for instance, Bruce Edwards and Tom Watts and those kind of guys or Curtis Strange and Greg Rita, people like that, to where I got an approval to move forward on that. And I want to say I sent out 30 letters to the proper people in charge of the advertising dollars, and I got back, I want to say, like five or six responses, and they were asking, well, what players can we have, how much, that kind of thing. And but at that time the Caddy Association was just getting off the ground, and myself being a caddy, obviously I didn't want to get in the way of a good program. I mean, to be honest, I kind of regret not moving forward on it, but I just kind of dropped the ball. There is one thing though that I did. I can't remember. It must have been like '86, with the help of somebody who's in the business. I had $12,000 to distribute among players at the British Open, caddies at the British Open, and I got in a bidding war with Slazenger for Seve Ballesteros' caddy, and I think I ended up, paying him a lot at that time, which was $3,000 for the week. And I had about 7 or 8 guys, and so there's value there, and we're not haven't been taking advantage of that because, in some ways I feel like we've allowed that to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's been difficult. You don't have a voice, but now, look at these players. They're immensely protected.
Right.
They have agents, they have lawyers, they have everything.
Right.
And they're protected from a legality standpoint.
Right.
Right? You guys don't have a lot of. I don't know of a caddy that I even know in the world that has his own agent. That has his own lawyer.
Right.
Making sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's the evolution and progress, and you guys are starting to look out for yourselves more. You guys realize, hey, they've been continuing to get more. We need to continue to get more. We're right here with you just as much as anybody else. And
I agree with that. I just feel as long as there's no suppression. That's where I'll draw the line. That's where I'll be very vocal about this. If I see suppression of anything, allowing not just wanting that constant flat line, I think as improvement goes, everyone gets better. We believe in that movement towards improvement. That means everyone improves, not just some people. And so I'm very vocal about that for sure.
Right.
You got to put your ego down.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that if the caddies are happy, that makes everyone more happy, and that makes the tour become more congruent, and then it can build as itself. It's not good for business within a business if people have this controversy and this debate, and it should be discussed though. It'd be different if they didn't have a company on them, and because they do, it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be justified on who gets what and why. It's a business. You guys are being thrown into a business, and you guys don't even know the lines that are drawn. There's this big gray area.
That's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about gray area because there was just a discussion about a caddy had tweeted out a couple things on Twitter. Right, this is his own personal Twitter account, and he's getting a little bit of backlash from the tour, and that's his own private, platform to say whatever he wants. But if that comes back negatively on the PGA Tour, they're saying, hey, we're gonna tighten it up. And my point is, you can't be like tight in one area and loose in another. You can't say, hey, you're a part of the PGA Tour, but we're not going to pay you like you're a part of the tour.
Right.
There needs to be. I really think the tour needs to step up and adopt the Caddy Association and either govern a governing body or at least some kind of joint venture. You can't just say, hey, we're interested in having you guys work because we know you're an important aspect of the game because we still want to value tradition, but in the same token, fend for yourself.
Right.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
I think, I always say life is about how well you help yourself first, and then how well you help others. If you don't help yourself, it's hard for you to help others. And what caddies, it seems like they've always put other people before them. You guys were always there. If your player needed a snack, you went and ran to the clubhouse. If they needed, whatever it needed, you were there to support your player 100%, which they did. And now I think after all those years of the caddies just always being that supporting role, they're now finally saying, we need to help ourselves.
Right.
And it should be. You can't always be out there for everybody else. You have to look out for yourself, or else nobody else will.
Yeah, it can't come down to the bottom dollar too. I mean, we've got, and I know there's parking issues now with the PGA Tour because they got so many things going on. It's a circus, really, right? You've got vans, you've got satellite towers, you got trucks, you got ShotLink, all these people come in and get food, catering, and they get to park close because of their priority.
Because they're money. They're paying money.
Because they're paying money. And the caddies aren't looking like, well, you guys don't bring any revenue for us. Right? So, and if you do, it's minimal.
Well, which they do.
You guys, they do, but that's not being looked at, right? And you guys can park sometimes 5 miles away and have to be shuttled in. And this is an issue that I don't think anybody else is addressing because I dealt with it. I leave my laser, or I have to run back because my player wants me to get something. Oh, I'd like you to go get something. Or can you put this in your car? My player has me do. I got to ride back on a shuttle. I got to get back. There's problems with the shuttle. I was on a bus one time in LA. The shuttle, I sat in traffic for 3 hours just getting back to the caddy area. And that's where the trainers were parking at that time. And I had my player saying, hey, I'll meet you in an hour. And I'm calling and going, I can't make it. But now you're messing with my ability to actually make money and costing me possibly my job. That's unacceptable. And so I have a lot of heart. I kind of get a little emotional about this because I've been out there, I've seen it, and I think if it was more vocal and people more had awareness of this, they probably would step up and wouldn't say for that. But guys haven't had a voice in this, and now I know that Kip Henley's just started his own podcast. That's going to happen. You're going to see guys that really you're going to see people having a voice. As long as that's not suppressed, I think it's a great thing.
I agree.
Well, I think whether it's helping players, or helping younger guys, helping guys on tour, helping yourself, that's what it's all about.
Yep.
So, Dave, I want to say thanks again for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Sharing your time. I want you back here soon.
Look forward to it.
Make some more videos tomorrow, hopefully on the course. Fish, thanks again as usual. Always support. And I always got to support each other, all three of us.
Absolutely.
We can all help each other grow. So thanks again for watching, you guys. Make sure you subscribe and link up with us on all our social media platforms. Buy all our merchandise, invest in the membership site. Let's help that bank account grow. Take it easy.